go for it.
Okay, so the title of the presentation is actually the title I decided to give the name of the garden that we've been working on for 2 semesters now. The West Meadow Native Plant Garden, in homage to the name that they gave the meadow at Western Woods. So just a brief outline of events that have transpired over time. So Wesselman Woods was granted land in 2023, and by May of 2024, myself and Yui, Dr. Hochwinder, had some spare plants from previous research projects that we decided to donate to Wesselman Woods. At that time, I was unaware of the greater plan for a larger meadow to be restored in the area of land that they acquired, which was a previous golf course. So that was around the time we had our first change lab, which focused on growing a bunch of native plants from seed in 2 different ways, from outdoor cold stratification and indoor stratification in the greenhouse. And then in the summer of 2025, Wesselman finally announced their West Meadow project. And by fall of 2025, we're here doing our second change lab and focusing on signage, while Wesselman Woods got the burden of doing all of the planting for us. Okay, so kind of framing a larger perspective for why this is an important project to be working on. As the global population increases, there's going to be drastic alterations in habitat. Majority of the population is going to be living in these urbanized areas, so that urbanized land is going to be expanding globally. Biodiversity loss is going to be associated with this loss of habitat due to fragmentation and also due to public disconnect with their local environment regarding landscaping choices in their own backyard. Urban conservation is going to be increasingly more important for supporting islands and corridors of natural habitat like Wesselman Woods, connecting green space within urban settings and other settings, but we're focusing on an urban setting, and raising public awareness of such issues. So this was a larger picture blown up of the image I had in the bottom right. This is Evansville. Wesselman Woods is pinned near the center, and you can see it's kind of a green blurb in the middle of intensely urbanized area and area that's intense in agriculture towards the upper right-hand portion of the screen. So more on Wesselman Woods. It's the U.S.'s largest old-growth forest in an urbanized setting. What that means is it's going to already be a very biodiverse location. So by having a meadow habitat associated next to an already diverse habitat, it's going to be recruiting species from that area and connecting corridors of green space to enhance the habitat that already exists there. And also, the people that will be visiting Wesselman Woods are going to be reliant on a place that already has like a reputation for having, it's a good educational resource for people to go and visit and gain good information, encourage younger kids to adults. So the West Meadow project, announced in 2025, was through the land donation of the golf course, which you can see highlighted in the orange. The other green areas were highlighted. It's also land that was donated, but that isn't what's being converted into meadow and then later into forest. And Wesselman Woods was able to do this through their partnerships with the community because they are a nonprofit. And the West Meadow Native Garden will be enhancing this area as well, even though it's that small portion highlighted in the middle of the orange and the white border. It's going to have a pathway to walk around. People can interact with the meadow and gain information about the plants that will be found in that area through our educational signage that we've been working on this semester. So here's a picture of the process of restoration of the meadow area. Wesselman Woods is planned for the land there. They started herbicide application just to make sure the seeds take whenever they put them on in the winter. And by the summer of 2028, there will be a fully restored meadow that people can go and visit. And just for reference, those plants that we donated in 2024, there's already a diversity of insects visiting that area. One being the American bumblebee, which is considered endangered, and that was seen in August of 2025, so just this year. Yeah, it was just kind of cool. So, as I mentioned, May of 2024 was our first planting with that donation of just spare plants we had. There was about 75-gallon pots and about 80 smaller, like 4 by 8 inch pots. About 9 of those species we donated were successful, which I have listed in order from increasing success. And then unsuccessful species, purple coneflower, swamp milkweed, and rattlesnake master at the bottom. Here's a photograph of that area a year-ish after we planted it. So you can see there's a wide gap in the center where some of those plants didn't take. The rattlesnake master didn't really do well. They were younger plants. The plants that you see that are larger were more mature plants. They were older. So they did more. They were more successful in that area. Yeah. So that was August of 2025. Spring of 2025, we had a first change lab. We focused on growing and transplanting the seedlings, and our future goal was to work on signage like we're doing this semester, because there were a lot of things going on. Some things fell away. We wanted to have a seed library that just didn't happen. We wanted to focus on the things that were most important to the project. We were successful that semester, so last spring, in growing 7 new species to the native garden area that we're working on. Those being rattlesnake master, false sunflower, swamp mallow, hibiscus, Illinois bundleflower, hoary vervain, golden alexander, and northern senna. The others that are not asterisks are ones that already existed, but we added more to the area. And then that's just a picture of us on the plot with all of the dead plants, and you can really see nothing. But that's, yep, that's how it is in the winter. And then here's some photographs of just that change labs process, mixing soil, filling it in the pots, and then treating it for pests with just neem oil, which is safe to use for insects that we would be targeting. And then some images of the plants that we've grown and the 5-gallon pots as seedlings, and kind of the growth process of swamp mallow hibiscus. And that was like the first day of beginning germination, and then that was a couple days later, and you can see they grow pretty fast. And then we had to separate those from the larger pots into smaller pots so that they could grow larger without competition between each other. In the fall of 2025, we're here to the present. We finished the job, which was a large job of transplanting all of those seedlings into individual pots so that we could grow them up larger. And we also focused on taking care of, like, basically just watering and fertilizing the plants, and then focused on creating the signage that you'll see later on in the presentation, capturing photos for that signage, and we were able to successfully create about 14 signs. The planting of the plants that we were working on happened at the end of October. There was about 310 5-gallon pots and 20 different species in total by the end of it. And then you could, sorry. The image just shows like most, not all, of the 5-gallon pots that we were able to transplant. So all of those had to get moved out, and that was a whole job taken to Wesselman. So yeah. And then here's some photos of us in the present transplanting. Once again, like I said, it was a large job. So 3 of us doing such. And then, here is a photo of all of the plants after we have taken them to Wesselman Woods, and as you can see, we really filled in that gap to get the area nice and dense. So hopefully that by next summer, it will be more cool. And then this is kind of a generalized map of the garden. This was my plan for how we were planting the things that we've grown so that it can be in patches that it's nice to, as you're walking around and visiting the garden, it's easy to identify something if it's clustered together. And also, it's also easier to identify the pollinators or the specialists that are going to be using those plants. And yeah, also, I grouped kind of the taller species towards the center and the shorter statured ones towards the edge so you can see through the garden. And another thing to note is that while it is only 20 species, which doesn't seem like a lot, it is kind of a lot to have packed into such a small space if it's only a 40 by 15 meter area. And also, a lot of these species have different bloom times, which is also beneficial to the pollinators that will be visiting them. For example, the goldenrod will be blooming late into the summer and fall, and then the false sunflower is an early bloomer, so there's kind of a diversity of blooming times as well. So our purpose for signage was to encourage and inform visitors to the garden. Students chose what they'd like to focus on for topics for signage, so whatever they personally connected with is what they focused on this semester. So topics can be related to biodiversity, the ecological services of the animals or plants that they chose, and just basic identification, what are you looking at? To do still, we need to connect with Wesselman Woods and revise. So a lot of all of these that you see are drafts of the signs, so they have not been approved, there's still a process going on. I did, however, go to Signs Now, which is just down the street, and I got a cost estimate for about an 8 by 11, which I now know is going to be 9 by 12. Not much of a difference. They said if the size differed a little bit, it's give or take a couple dollars per unit price, but $10.50 per sign, so in total about $200. So, and we're still looking into getting a donation to cover the cost of the signage.
We can go there together.
Yeah.
So, I'm Julian. I'm a communications major. I worked in the Change Lab last semester as well. I was kind of brought in to do some of the more design stuff and just communication, because last semester we also focused on redoing Eco Club, trying to get some more members there. But this semester we mostly focused on the signs, and so we really wanted to focus on three main things. One, like trying to break down the scientific info. I know personally for me, I've taken lots of bio classes. It's not easy, and so when you're trying to simply explain something, that's not easy either. So we try to find quick and easy ways for that everybody could understand. We also wanted to focus on uniformity, so we came up with kind of a code for how each sign should look, so they look recognizable, and you can kind of go through each sign while you're there and understand there's kind of a story with each one. And then lastly, like Lily's going to mention here in just a moment, we wanted to focus on accessibility for everyone. So trying to do our best to make sure that the most amount of people can enjoy the information in the garden itself.
Yeah, so a lot of our design decisions were made with accessibility in mind. This is something that I'm really passionate about. I had some developmental delays when I was young, so that's kind of, made me passionate about it, and I'm doing similar work in a different Change Lab. So we decided to use a font for most of our body text called Lexins that is easier for people with low vision or dyslexia to read. And we also, you'll see in our color palettes that we have chosen, there is no red on green. So colorblind people can also access these. So, my name is Lily, by the way. I'm kind of a bit of the odd one out here. So we have communications and then a lot of environmental science and biology majors. I am a math major, so yeah, I am, so I'm a little out of my element, and I felt when we got to the sign making process that gave me just a little bit of extra perspective. So coming into this class, I was really interested in ecology, but I didn't know very much. And I really wanted to change that because, I felt bad that, there's all this nature around me that I wasn't recognizing. And so one of the first things that we did in this class was we read an excerpt called Prairie Birthdays. And on one level, it was about how there are all these plants around us that bloom at a certain time each year, give or take a couple weeks, that we may not be noticing. But on another level, it's about our attitudes towards nature and how they change once you start to learn about the nature around you. So I read this, and then I go, and go deep into doing all this transplanting work, learning all about these species that we're working with. And I get to the sign design, and there is so much that I want to share. And the challenge becomes, how do you fit that in less than 100 square inches? Especially with big text like this. So I really wanted to do a call to action. And so I wanted to give people some tips that they could use to, as I say here, level off their garden. Planting native plants so that the native pollinators and herbivores that have evolved to rely on them can access them. Leaving dead stems and leaves in their gardens over the winter, because those are valuable overwintering sites for a lot of our native insects. And parting with pesticides, because those just straight up kill the insects that we really want to conserve. And as I was making this sign, I started realizing that there was a bit of an issue, because I have told these to people in my life, as I've gone through the class, and a lot of them recognized that would be good, but still did not want to actually do it. And so I realized that the issue was not just a conceptual one, but a phenomenological one. We're not experiencing nature in the same way. And so I found an image that I think really spoke to me. This is from our native plant garden here at school, taken earlier this semester, of what a thriving garden really looks like. How it's kind of messy and may not mesh with the sense of aesthetics that we are trained to value. But it is more beautiful, I would argue, for being like this.
And we're just going to take you guys through each sign. And similar to Lily, we all have our own personal connections and reasons why we made certain creative decisions. So I was actually assigned specialist pollinators, and much like Lily, I found a connection to them, because as a communications major, I did also feel a little bit on the outside. But like specialist pollinators, there was a reason for me to go there, and so I found myself going there. So I really connected with specialist pollinators. So this is my first sign, just kind of detailing what a specialist pollinator is, what they do, why they exist, why we need them. And essentially specialists are certain insects that, in my case, bees, but certain that they need the specific resources from certain plants in order to survive. And some of them have even developed to actually only be able to pollinate this certain plant. So that was kind of what my first sign wanted to do. And another thing that we focused on throughout the signs was trying to become relatable, trying to give an example, or just provide a visually enhancing image. But so I kind of landed on the thing, have you ever gone somewhere only because your best friend was going? And that's kind of how these specialist plants work. They're only going to be there if their connecting plant is there. And then going on to my second sign, we have the swamp mallow hibiscus at the turret bee. So this is actually one of the specialist pollinators that is going to be in the native plant garden. And this connection is actually really interesting because they do a lot, but the biggest thing is that the turret bee actually sits inside the flower waiting for the females, to come by and collect, and then that's how they find their mates. And also, they actually have an intertwined life cycle. So this flower blooms right as their eggs hatch, so they kind of end up spending a whole life together. And then my last sign kind of focused on the different pollen collecting strategies that each bee has. And like I mentioned earlier, specialists that have even more unique ones. The cucumber bee that you see right there has like hair on its legs, and that's what it goes into the flower and collects pollen on its hair. And then the hairy belly bee actually has, as the name would suggest, a really hairy belly, and it collects pollen on there. But even the other ones have little saddle bags, so they literally just stuff their little bag full of pollen and then fly to the next one. I thought this was really cool and a really cool thing to bring in connection to the specialists that we have.
Hi, so my name is Katie. I am an environmental administration major, and I have an obsession with butterflies. My friends will tell you my dorm room is literally purple and butterfly themed. So naturally, I wanted to make a sign about butterflies. I originally wanted to make a couple different ones discussing different species that you might see in the garden, but I ended up choosing a more realistic goal, and what I thought was more important, explaining why butterflies really are important to the environment, not just, oh, they're so pretty and aesthetically pleasing to look at. They do serve a much greater importance than we give them credit for. So the first major point I discussed is how they are a habitat health indicator. Butterflies are very sensitive to their environments, so by having a strong, thriving butterfly population, you know that the plants that they thrive off of are also thriving, and that there is such a strong diversity, which is very important, especially in our native plant garden. And then pollination. Although butterflies are not the strongest pollinators, there are some species that are stronger at this task. Like down in the left corner, I have a picture of a fiery skipper that Dr. H had provided for me, thankfully. And by including this picture, you can see, even though when you think of what a butterfly looks like, you normally aren't thinking of the one in the bottom left corner. You're probably thinking of this eastern tiger swallowtail or a monarch. But I wanted to include not only a aesthetically pleasing to look at butterfly, but one that serves an important role in pollination and in the environment. And then finally, butterflies are an important food source. In the food web, you know, organisms gotta eat. So mostly birds and other organisms will feed on the larval stage, which is caterpillars, but yeah, butterflies are more important than just sitting and looking pretty.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mr. Bryant. I am a environmental science major, and for my sign, I took a more visual approach, as you can probably tell. I wanted to educate people on the importance of the milkweed as a umbrella species, meaning that it supports a wide range of insects and such. Now, I chose this sign because over the summer, I worked as a gardener, and every time I noticed that the milkweeds always have so much variety compared to like every other plant. So I just thought that was very interesting. My first point is, why do we even have milkweed? Why should we care? Basically just wrote about how it's a native pollinator, which, like I said, attracts a ton of different little creatures. I compiled a bunch of them onto this milkweed through image editing apps. And I opted to include the full cycle of the monarchs because I know that this is a popular a species that people can connect to. So I put in the a chrysalis, proving that it provides a place to grow. It provides a food source for the caterpillar, and it can provide nectar for the butterfly. And I put a few more species on there, as the eastern carpenter bee, milkweed bug, and the milkweed beetle, which is hiding there. It's hard to see up here, but it's a lot easier when it's not on this. And I included some identification, rounded leaves, pink bundles of flowers, and an occasional white sap. One thing that I really liked about this project was the fact that it was a collaborative effort. This sign went through many different phases. First, it was drawn out. The text was all over the place. I would say that it went through at least 6 iterations. But yeah, I think that we're all pretty happy with this one.
Hello, I'm Evelyn. I'm undeclared at the moment. I'm really passionate about conservation and the environment. So my sign, Monarch Conservation, what kind of prompted me to choose it was I was able to observe monarch caterpillars and butterflies up close in our native plant garden on campus, and it piqued my interest, and I did a lot of research into the monarch. And when I did that research, I started to worry a lot about how human actions are contributing to monarch decline. And so I wanted to provide tangible actions that people could do, because I'm choosing to believe that people do want to protect the monarch, and they do care. They might not know what to do. So I came up with the acronym Protect Our Pals. You can think of that. And then each letter stands for something that is tangible that you can do. Planting native milkweed, advocating for those overwintering sites that are so crucial for monarchs to be protected, and avoiding pesticide use. So kind of like Mitchell talked about with the milkweed, monarchs are, they're an umbrella species. And originally when I did this sign, I wasn't sure I wanted to focus on the monarch, because the monarch is very recognizable. They already get a lot of attention. And I didn't want to be giving them more attention when they're already getting so much. If there's another lesser known species that should be getting attention and isn't. But because the monarch is an umbrella species, protecting the monarch protects many other species, like with the milkweed village, like protecting the monarch by planting more milkweed would in turn protect all those lesser known critters. So the making of my sign, I spent so much time formatting, because I wanted to make it consumable for the general public. So something that makes sense to me, because I started out as a biology major, I took a lot of biology classes. Something that's like, oh, I know that, like that makes sense to me. The general public might be like, no, that's confusing, I don't get that. And so I wanted to avoid that, so someone doesn't look at my sign and they're like, no, this is too much scientific jargon, I'm just gonna skip it. And then also there were the struggles of condensing so much knowledge and research about the monarch, and I had to make it fit on my sign. It was a struggle, but I'm really happy with the final product. I think it turned out well.
Alright, hi, my name is Annalise Garza. I'm also an environmental science major here at UP. So as you can tell, my sign's over goldenrod. The reason that I picked goldenrod as the species that I wanted to cover is because a lot of the slides we have had thus far have been covering insects and not a lot of the plants, which were our main focus and the prerogative of planting stuff over our Westlands. And I chose goldenrod specifically because it is one of the most recognizable ones, considering that there's over 25 different types of it in Indiana alone and 100 in the United States in total. You can find them growing all over the place in along the sides of the roads, in your backyard, and you might not even realize what it is and the potential that it has as a native species here. So given the fact that it's part of the aster family, the goldenrod can be super tall, which is the reason why it's so recognizable, is its height, and it plays a really important role for all of our different species here because of the fact that it flowers for such a long time, beginning in early summer to late, is it late fall or is it early fall? One of the two. Okay, thank you. And because it lasts that long, a lot of different species have the opportunity to feed off of that, which hence in turn feeds the cycle of, eating creatures. So I chose this picture in specific. This one right here is a rough goldenrod, but the species that we have in the garden is giant goldenrod. Careful distinction. But the reason why this one is chosen is because there is skippers and wasps both on this, highlighting the fact that goldenrod serves to both help pollinators and more. That's all.
Hello, I'm AJ. I'm also an environmental science major. Now this first slide of mine is on the mint family identification. It was the first family I learned to identify from their square stems, which I wanted to make easy to remember by remembering that mint has 4 letters and the squares are 4-sided. And I think it would be a good starting point for all people, because many people actually interact with mints daily as seasonings. Some of our basil, rosemary, sage, thyme, and lavender are all mint plants. Another part I wanted to show in the design that will help us remember some of their key characteristics are the fact that the leaves grow opposite from each other, like on the stem. The leaves will grow in pairs, like right in line. And I wanted to show that by replacing the T in the mint with an actual mint plant. Their last most characteristic design, or characteristic, is their smell, which I actually go into deeper on my next slide, which is about one of the plants we actually planted in our native garden, bee balm. Now this is Monarda fistulosa. The images are on their flowers because I would say that's the easiest way to identify it, just because I have mistaken it for a different species when I was searching up a different one that has a very bright pink flower. Now what I want to focus on with this was the actual origin of the name bee balm. Like a lot of these nicknames that things get can actually provide insights into what it does or what about it. And in this case, bee balm earned its name from the early colonists who were taught by Native Americans that to use a balm made of this plant's resin to actually soothe bee stings, hence the name bee balm. And then I also want to give general knowledge on this, but this is more focusing on mints, is that their actual smell, like the unique smell of all mints, is meant to protect them from herbivores and pathogens. And it's obviously not just to smell good to us, it's to protect them. However, this deterrent may also help, pollinators by just being a more free space for them, giving more space to them.
All right, and it was really hard to condense all the information onto the sign that I made. There was a lot that went into it. Just kidding, it's the title. So I have the logo for Wesselman Woods and obviously University of Evansville, the Change Lab. And that space is left for whoever is going to be the donor for the signs, which I have a couple of people, it's just, we have to follow through with it, so. Okay, a summary of stats. Overall, there was about 1,500 plants that were put into the native plant garden at Wesselman. It's about 385 gallon pots, 80 4x6 pots, 20 different species, give or take, because there are some things that are minorly present in the garden, and 14 signs in total. And then instead of throwing more stats at you, I kind of wanted to share a personal story. So you may not think that something as simple as signs and being able to identify a plant or a bee might change someone's perspective for the better. So this is a picture from 2021 I took, and I was like, oh, pretty flowers. I could not identify a single plant in that photo at the time. So that was previous to my beginning education at the University of Evansville. Through my experience with research and my work in the native plant garden, and just my personal interest has grown. I now have all of those plants except for a cup plant, which you see, that's the tall plant. It's super aggressive. I did not put it in my garden. I have all of those plants and more in my garden now, so looking back on this photo that I just happened to take a picture of, it's just, my whole mindset has changed. So I think our goal for the signs and the garden in general is just to enhance the area at Wesselman Woods, also offer an ability to do research for people that are interested in that, like I was, and to inspire people, which is my point in sharing my story. I think just something as simple as recognizing something exists and its value associated with it is just, yeah, it goes a long way. So, yeah, questions? Also, I have a sample of what the material of the signs would be made of if anybody wants to look at that.
Thank you for sharing especially that last slide. That's not one I've seen yet. I've seen
Yeah.
a couple of your presentations, and that last slide is so impactful. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And congratulations, all of you. This is such a cool project. Hearing your process through going through the signs and how you're able to bring your personality and your perspectives and your skills to educating the community on the importance of pollinators. It's super cool. That really shows that this type of thing can and is more accessible to people like me who have no background in this than we would just otherwise think. So thank you for leading that effort in this team lab. And I'll open it up. We have a lot of guests here today. I'm really excited to see everybody here.
Just scoot in. I'm one of the Westland Woods guests, so I just want to see which Woods this makes sense. And I want to start by saying thank you for Westland Woods. This makes that area that has been kind of a dead space so beautiful. I cannot wait to see it all next year. Again, thank you guys. And I'm sure Derek, our Director of Natural Resources and Research, I'm Director of Marketing. So feel you guys who are not the scientists, I'm not a scientist either. Love science, love what I learned. And what you guys are doing is going to help our mission so much. One of the biggest pieces of that mission is education. And for people who aren't scientists or maybe don't feel that connection on the day-to-day, how do we make them care? It's these bite-sized pieces of trivia they might be able to share. And I even learned so much today just sitting here with you guys. 25 species of goldenrod. Like that's so it's very exciting. And I want to throw in there, I got your sponsor, so don't worry about the science.
Oh, wow.
Oh, super cool. Yeah.
That is so
Yeah.
And for signs, just because that's an example of the quality. This is, I would say this computer is about the size of the signs, so that it'll be a bite-sized visual, but with big enough text for people to read easily.
Oh, yeah, and I will add too, my degree was in graphic design. Found myself in marketing, but design is still very near and dear, and I wanted to congratulate you guys for not being designers. Like, this first attempt is really good. I'm very excited to work with you guys. I know we couldn't be in on the initial meetings with those to kind of dissect them, but very few notes that I have, so I'm excited to get these in production, but look forward to working with you guys a little bit on that side too.